Do you know what I think is the best title of a book ever?
What?
Death and the End of Self-Improvement. How did you come up with that one, Joan?
Well, I was writing a book that was obviously focused a lot on death and old age, and that title just popped into my mind. And every time I would mention it to people, they would laugh, and they seemed to find something very relieving in it as well. And most people, I mean, some people would look at me like I was nuts. One person said, "Don't be too sure," um, but basically people would laugh and then look relieved. So I thought, well, this is a good title, and I kept it.
Do you reckon there's self-improvement in the afterlife, or did they think
I guess
that?
they thought so, yeah, or they believed in
on the,
reincarnation or something. So
on the other side?
yeah,
Well, I think it's genius. Titled that. How's You're not dead yet?
as far as I know.
so, so how's the self-improvement project going now, Joan?
Well, I think I've made peace with the fact that Joan is going to remain imperfect in many, many ways.
Have you given up on it? When did you last go? When did you last go on a self-improvement workshop?
I don't know if I ever went to self improvement workshops. I did do a lot of therapy in the past, and I, of course, did many Zen sessions and retreats of various kinds, but I was never really into the sort of New Age self improvement movement at all. I can't say I've totally lost interest in changing things that are painful to me or to other people. Like I'd love it if my compulsive finger biting fell away permanently, but so far it hasn't fallen away permanently. I'd love it if I never lost my temper and said anything unkind to anybody, but so far that seems to still happen on occasion. And so there are things that I would probably be happy, but I'm not like doing anything sort of actively to address any of those things beyond just what I sort of naturally do from years of meditation and meditative inquiry, which is just to be always kind of noticing what's happening.
Joan, you must be one of the most noticing persons I know in my current network of contacts. You're constantly scanning. You're completely up to speed. It seems to be not only with the spiritual landscape, but the political landscape and the cultural landscape. You're always recommending podcasts and videos and books. It's great. You're my best recommender.
Uh, well, I confess that I do still like to read books. I don't tend to get a lot of new spiritual books anymore, but occasionally I do if someone that I really like comes, like David Hinton, who I really like, is coming out with a new book next week, and I have ordered that from Amazon. um, and
I'm
yeah, so I
I'm going to make a note, Joan. I've never heard of David
he's
Hinton.
a translator of early Chan. That's the Chinese Zen. What became Zen in Japan was called Chan back in China, and it was close to Taoism in many ways. And so David Hinton is a translator of Chan texts and other things from China from that period, like poetry and so on. And
Cool.
and he's written a number of books, both looking at the translating process and also art, Chinese art. Those paintings, and and he's written his own poetry as well, and there's a book called Hunger Mountain describing his walks up this mountain where he lives that's so beautiful. And I think a book called China Root might be a good one to start with, because it's really interesting because he talks about how, like, in the Chinese language, well, first of all, it's pictographs in the beginning. It's pictographs, and then they don't have a word for like I. for this, for the subject of something. So they'll have something like standing cliff, moon, rain, or something, and he has to put that into English as something like I am standing on the cliff, hearing the rain or something, because they don't have all those pronouns and so on. So they don't have to
I
they
was
don't have to worry if they're using the right pronoun. Anyway, um, so
all very
and
topical.
also like in that kind of Asian art where the landscape is it's the landscape that's the whole painting, and then the people are these little tiny things in the landscape,
Boatman in the little boat on the big lake with
Yeah,
big cliff.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so it's like a whole different perspective from Western art where the person is central.
I was very surprised to learn from a Chinese revolutionary woman and a prize-winning novelist. I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and I went to her workshop on calligraphy, learning the pictograms. Only for an hour, and a brush, only for an hour. But I was shocked when she told us that there is no I in Mandarin or in the Chinese
Yeah.
language. And I can't conceive, because you and I are Westerners, it's all about me or I. I can't conceive what it must be like growing up in a culture without an I.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really, I mean, and David Hinton just sort of, and this comes from Chinese culture and Shan and everything that, and Taoism, you know, th this real oneness, you could say, with the earth, with nature. And he has a beautiful book. Of course, I can't remember the title. It was the last one, I think, before the one that's just coming out. That's the other thing that happens when you get old. You can't remember anything anymore.
Don't worry about that. Coming back to the quest for self improvement, Joan, it's worth asking the question, who is it that wants self improvement?
Well, that's a great question to look into, I think. It's like, and I think there's kind of two possibilities. Um, on the one hand, I think that there's a natural longing for wholeness and peace of mind, and some people would even say it's our true nature calling us home, which I think is an aspect. You can see it that way. And then sometimes it's definitely the little me, the ego, this little imaginary mirage like character who seems to be at the center of my life story, who wants to be perfect or wants to be better or feels like a failure and wants to overcome that and all that. And that's all very egoic and all about me. And I think, we can kind of tune in and even notice where we're coming from or what's motivating us kind of in any given moment. I don't think it's always one way or the other.
In your book, Nothing to Grasp, you say we are deeply convinced that something is missing, that things are not quite right.
Yeah.
Now, I have written I've kept a journal for 30 odd years actually. And the number of times I have written about this, that I'm addicted to the sense of lack, the sense of something missing. Not this. I don't want this, Joan. I want some other this.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the antidote to that
Well,
addiction?
yeah, I think the antidote is being aware of it. Awareness is really the transformative power in my experience that for everything. But yeah, so being aware of that, how, it's a kind of inevitable, I think, inevitable feeling or thought story once we, as separate, apparently separate body minds, and the body is definitely vulnerable, very vulnerable, and very, impermanent. Um, So, to the degree that we're identified as the body mind, there's always going to be some sense of danger and incompleteness, and we're never good enough. We're never, we can all, we humans have this capacity that other animals don't seem to have to imagine a better future, so we can imagine me being so much better and the world being so much better. And in some ways that can be useful because, it got us to the moon and that sort of thing. And it can sometimes motivate us to go into, say, a recovery program or something. But it's often just a source of suffering and pain because we feel, on that level, we feel incomplete and deficient and not good enough. And so I think the antidote is seeing that, seeing the kind of, that's just it's in some way natural, and it's also just a story that we keep telling ourselves. I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I need to be more this, more that, blah blah blah. And also tuning into a sense of the wholeness of everything, of the bigger picture, where we're not just this little limited little me, we're the whole universe. I mean, we're a manifestation of the whole universe. And even the body, if you really explore it, not by thinking about it, but by sensing it, by closing our eyes and just feeling into it, the body, you see it's not really solid. You can't really find a boundary between inside and outside. So when you tune into that sort of dimension of wholeness and non-separation, it's also a wonderful antidote to feeling like this isn't good enough. And you sort of begin to see how everything goes together. Like there's that wonderful old Chinese farmer story, where the farmer, his one horse runs away, and the neighbors all come over and say, "Oh, what terrible fortune!" And he says, "Well, maybe." And then the next day, his horse comes back, bringing with it a whole bunch of wild horses, and the neighbors come over and say, "Oh, what wonderful good fortune!" And he says, "Well, maybe." And then the next day, his only son, who's basically running the farm because the old guy's old now, his only son falls off one of the new horses and breaks his leg. And the neighbors all come, so he can't work on the farm anymore. And the neighbors all come over and say, "Oh, what terrible bad fortune." And the old farmer says, "Well, maybe." And then the next day, the army comes through and they're conscripting all the young men to go fight in some war from which none will return. And the neighbors again come over, "Oh, what terrible bad fortune." What good fortune, what wonderful fortune. And the old farmer says, "Well, maybe," because they don't take his son, and because he has a broken leg. So that story just sort of beautifully captures the way that everything goes together in ways that we can't really conceive. And we all know this from our own life experience, that some of our seemingly worst experiences have opened doors and been gifts in many ways. Like for me, having cancer was a blessing in many ways. Being born without a right hand has been a blessing in many ways. I wouldn't choose either of those things, and there's been a lot of difficulties with them, but they've also been blessings. And so I think when we have that bigger sense, it also helps because you see that the things that appear to be terrible or that appear to be horrible mistakes or whatever, that in some way it's all an interconnected, interdependent, inseparable whole. And that, like the old Chinese farmer says, "Well, maybe." Maybe this is good.
Well,
Maybe this is bad. We'll see.
I think perhaps unlike animals or most animals, as far as we know, uh, we have been given the gift of having a sense of the future, possible future
Yeah.
outcomes, as well as looking back at the past. And so we're sort of we're caught up in a sort of a mental web of looking forward and looking back at the same
Yeah.
time, and uh, it sort of can be more of a curse than a blessing. That
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it obviously has its advantages, but again, it's gotten us to the moon. Unlike other animals who are very much sort of in the moment, so to speak, present, fully present in the moment, we are often caught up in a thought story about the future or the past, which is happening in the present. I mean, that is the present moment, but it's a very different present moment, so to speak, than when you're fully awake, present, however you want to put it, to just the immediacy of the moment.
And do you think that the root cause of this addiction to a sense of lack, a sense of something missing, perhaps that most of us feel most of the time, do you think it's literally just a habit of mind? And if I ask myself, is it true? It's never true.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's, I mean, it's all of these thoughts that we have that refer to me. Um, they're all just habits of thought, really, based on our conditioning and everything else, you know. And when you could see them as thoughts, I mean, one of my favorite thoughts is I've ruined my whole life. I haven't actually had that one in a very long time, but um, it used to be one of my favorite habitual thoughts. I've ruined my whole life, and you know, when you really
Sorry,
when
sorry.
you see that for the absurd statement that it is, it's funny. It's actually funny, and and so I think that's, you know, that's why meditation can be so helpful, because you're just sitting there doing nothing else and you begin to see what's going on in the mind, and you begin to see all these thought patterns that you hadn't really noticed before, and you begin to see that they are just thought patterns, like you say, just old habits. And then the more that's seen, the less grip they have and the less believability they have. And they might still pop up sometimes, but they don't tend to bring on a major depression, which can definitely happen if you believe that you've ruined your whole life.
It's it's the unkindest thought of all, Joan. I can't. You're the worst. You know, your worst enemy. Throw that brick bat at you. You've wasted your life, or you've made a mess of your whole life. We are unkind to ourselves, aren't
Oh, I
we?
think we're more unkind to ourselves usually than to other people. We're very hard on ourselves, and I'm not a parent, but I mean, I think one of the patterns for parents is often I've ruined my child's life. I've, you know, I screwed them all up or something, you know. I could have done so much better. And yeah, and yet in each moment we can only do what we're doing. I mean, it can't be any other way in the moment than it is.
And wishing it were not so, just as it is the root cause of what you call in your book suffering, and you make the distinction between pain and suffering, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, life inevitably includes pain and painful circumstances like bankruptcy and homelessness and war and so on. Um, but suffering, as I'm using the word, is sort of the mental overlay on top of that, the resistance to that, wanting it to be different. I mean, in a certain, of course, we want, you know, if we're in pain, I mean, if I have a excruciating headache, of course I'd like it to go away. I mean, it's not like that's not there at all. But, but, you know, to the degree that we're sort of sitting there hating the headache and wanting it to go away and resisting it, that actually makes it worse, which is something you can discover if you're in pain, physical pain, by just actually paying attention to all of that, because you begin to see that if you're resisting it, it sort of seems like it's something outside of you that's attacking you, and it makes it worse. It amplifies it. And when you completely tune into it just as sensation, it's very interesting. I mean, you see, well, it's not solid, it's changing, it comes and goes, it's can be even interesting. And same with painful circumstances. I mean, if something horrible has just happened in your life, all of your money has just disappeared or something, you know, okay, that's how it is, you know. It's like, and it doesn't help to be sitting there ruminating on, oh, this is horrible, what am I going to do now, blah 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 blah. It's sort of like you just do the next thing, you know, kind of. And it makes it worse if you are just sitting there thinking about how this is the end, blah, 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 So that's the suffering, is the overlay and the resistance.
I think Leonard Cohen lost all his
He
money,
did.
or he had it robbed by his management, I think. And I'm wondering. I'm just riffing on that, Joan. I'm wondering if his 6 years or whatever it was in the Zen monastery, it was at Mount Baldy Monastery, where he was a practicing Zen monk, and he was regarded as the quiet one. he, he was the silent monk.
Well, yeah, everybody's pretty silent, and yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, I'm sure that helped, And luckily, he had an incredible talent, so he was able to, even though he wouldn't have otherwise done this, he was able to go on a tour because he was in his 70s when this happened, as I recall, and
Yeah.
um, and he hadn't planned to go on another world tour, but he went on another world tour, and they didn't think they were going to attract very big audiences, so they rented in the beginning. They rented this little small places, and then of course they were sold out in a minute, and there were huge crowds, and so it was kind of wonderful, because it was like um, he got a huge warm reception and did a wonderful
Mm.
tour.
Did you ever see him
Not
live, Joan?
live, no, no. He's one of my absolute favorites, and I've listened to all his music, and I've seen there's a number of documentaries that are really wonderful about him. So I've seen those, and I've seen him performing in those, but I never got to see him live. Never knew him in person or anything.
I don't think you've got any music albums out yet, have you, Joan? You have published a few books. Is is that sort of your outlet where you can, shall we say, distill both your thinking and your practice? Because I love the simplicity and directness and the outright rudeness of the content of your books.
Uh,
It's like no other spiritual books. It's great.
yeah. Well, yeah, definitely. That does seem to be my primary expression. I was a painter for a while. Like I started out in college as an art major, and I made a few small films, and so I also have a very visual side, but I don't really do anything. I mean, I still take photographs sometimes, and occasionally I'll put one in my Substack or something. But I and I've never, aside from the fact that I force people to listen to me singing "Happy Birthday" to them on their birthday, I don't, and I sing in the shower and around the house a lot, but but I don't think I would be a real smash hit. But I really envy musicians because to me that is sort of the, I don't know, and also when I was a visual artist, painting, I painted really big and it was very physical. It was like dancing. I mean, and I love paint. I loved painting, and I could imagine being a musician. It's not mental. It's really in the body, and it's so you know, and that's wonderful. Whereas writing is much more. You have to think a bit, and it's like it's more mental. And I'm sitting there. I type with one finger, so I type very fast with one finger. So I'm sitting there, peck, 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 like this, and physically,
Like a
it's
woodpecker.
kind of like it's not this wonderful, So, yeah, but that does seem to be my art form for better or worse.
Your Substacks are very long and extremely well thought out.
Well, I don't actually think them out. It just kind of flows out of me. But I guess in some way I think because I often like after I've written part of it, I'll move a paragraph to another place or something like that, or edit it a bit. Yeah, some people complain that it's too long. I know that people like short things, and I have to confess I also like short things. I mean, I like when I'm reading a book, I always appreciate when the chapters are really short. Um, and unfortunately, the soul of wit, as they say, has not appeared to be my gift. brevity, the soul of wit. Yeah, that doesn't seem to be one of my gifts, brevity. So it just isn't kind of one of my gifts.
I have to correct you there, Joan. Clarity is
Well,
the the clarity of your words and sentences that they peel away layers for me. I find myself nodding a lot. Yes, 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 yes. Right, you're right. Got you. Yes, that's exactly how it is. For me anyway. You tell it exactly as it is. This sort of conundrum of being both a separate entity and yet dissolving into non-separation, just being a part of everything,
yeah.
this continuous flow. You're very good at describing that.
Well, thank you, Phil. That means a lot to me coming from you. I thank you. That's very nice to hear. And many people have said that my writing is very clear and beautiful, and I get those kinds of compliments, honest, but definitely not short.
Definitely not. Have you got a book in progress, Joan, at the
I
moment?
do. I mean, and basically, it's just got. It could be several books, even. I mean, because I think a lot of people have suggested that my Substack articles, of which there are now a huge number, could be published as a book, and they would like to see that. Um, and then I have, basically, I have a file. This is how I've written a lot of my books. I have a file, not all my books, but this isn't how I wrote Nothing to Grasp, but it's how I've written like some of my books. Is that I have a file, the new book, and anytime I write an email to somebody and I like what I've said, I pop it into that file. Or every time I have a Substack article that I think was really good, pop it into that file. And so the file grows until it's thousands of pages long and requires an enormous amount of editing and rearranging, which is the part I hate. And so I procrastinate and procrastinate and procrastinate and don't do that. And and then eventually, maybe if I don't die first, I do that, and then there's another book.
You're a magpie writer
Magpie, right?
or a squirrel writer. You you hide your nuts in fire in fires, and then you then you scrump them and put them all together in a new book. Do you work with an editor, I guess, before it's
My
published?
first book, Bare Bones Meditation, that was published by an imprint of Random House, and I had an editor from Crown Random House, and she was an incredible editor. I learned a lot from her. That was the only time, and she didn't really do anything. She would just tell me, well, there's too much of this, or not enough of this, or I had one of my major relationships in the book, and she said, I think you should just cut that out. It has nothing to do with your life. But, but, and then, I had many more back and forths between Springwater and the Zen Center. And she said, you may have gone through this over and over, but we can't put the reader through it too many times. So you have, so she had suggestions like that, and she was very good. And then since then, I've never had any editing done to any of my material. I've had when I've written for things that were like in other anthologies or magazines or something, I've sometimes had an editor. And editors can be a pain in the ass. I mean, if they're really good, like my one that I had when I wrote Bare Bones, you could learn so much from them if they're really good. But some of them are like they just want to rewrite your material the way they would have written it. And that I find very irritating.
Are you familiar with the expression "a job's worth"? This is a derogatory
No,
description of somebody.
I've never heard that.
A job's worth is somebody who's got their feet under the table in their role, their formal role in publishing. Or in my early days, I was in the music business, and the job's worth that their job seemed to be to tell you how your demo recording, however good it was, could you just do one more? Could you just change this? Could you just do that? Because that's their job.
Yeah.
But you go round and round in circles, and you never you never get to the finished the deal.
So, were you a musician, or what were you doing in the music world?
What do you mean? What was I a musician? I am a musician.
Well,
I've got
I've never
my
heard you making
basic.
music, so I didn't know all this.
I'll send you some demos.
Okay.
This addiction that we've sort of talked about, something missing or something lacking, or I don't want this, I want some other this. Uh, Also, in nothing to grasp, you have this lovely expression, Joan. There is nothing to find that is not already fully present. So, can we call the search off, Joan?
Yeah. Um, there is nothing to find. Sometimes it's amazing. Someone tells you you've written something, and it's like, did I say that?
You did.
There's nothing to find that isn't already fully. Well, obviously, if you're looking for a new saxophone, for example, well, I suppose it's already present somewhere. But referring to things like if you're looking for wholeness or peace of mind or something like that is what I think I was
Yeah.
talking about.
Yes.
It's already here. It's the very nature of here. You may not be in touch. You may not be sort of tuned into it or noticing it, but it's the it's the very nature of presence of here now.
And here now is never absent.
Right. I mean, and when I use the word now, I don't mean the fleeting present moment. I mean this timeless, eternal present that even the thinking about the past, imagining the future, it's all happening in this timeless, eternal presence. And or as I sometimes say, and I got this from Tony Packer, this one bottomless moment, which is the tentative title of the book in progress, One Bottomless Moment. But anyway, and then here, as I mean it when I use it that way, is not about, this particular location, but again, the presentness in which every location appears. So that here now we're always here now. No matter how much change and movement there is, it never departs from right here, right now, experientially. And there's something we don't often that seems so obvious once you notice it, and yet it seems like it can take an enormous amount of time to notice that for some reason.
For what reason do you think, Joan? This. Come on, this is the stone in the horse's shoe.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I think we're just so habituated to thinking of the past and the future, and we sort of have this whole picture of, time is this long linear thing, and the past is back there, and the future is up here, and um, and we don't really notice presence itself, just the sort of, and there's something just really alive and wondrous and profound, about just presence, just here now, regardless of how it's showing up. Even if it's showing up as a headache or compulsive finger biting um, or you just got diagnosed with cancer or whatever it might be. And yet it's so easy to kind of overlook that and go looking for something in the future, you know, like, I mean, people sit there in meditation. I've certainly done this. People sit there in meditation, trying to be here now in the next moment.
Done that.
Yeah, I think anyone who's meditated has done that. Yeah.
You can read about that in my next book, Joan. I've forensically examined the hours and hours of sitting in a cold church with John, and I like a good student and a good apprentice. I've made my notes, my course notes.
I think you did
So
send me the title, the apprentice of what was it? Mystical
Diary of a
Apprentice or
Mystic
something like
Apprentice.
that.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Well, that should be interesting. Well, John Butler, who you've been talking to and videoing, filming for quite a number of years now, um, is quite
Yeah.
an amazing being. I've never met him in person, so I only know him virtually, or actually, I feel deeply connected, um, not just online. Um, but yeah, he's an amazing being that you got yourself hooked up with.
The Lone Ranger and Tonto, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We've put the hours in. I think we've probably done our 10,000 hours, Joan, each of us. So can we agree to call the search off?
Well, as one of my teachers, Charlotte Joko Beck, once said at the end of a talk, I think, about seeking. I think she said, but no matter what I say, we'll all be out there seeking something an hour from now. I don't know if that seeking impulse ever completely vanishes, but um, but it's can certainly like I'm not seeking enlightenment anymore. I spent years like I'd listen to other people's descriptions. Well, I'd read about various people or hear about various people, and then they would say things like, "I never get angry anymore," or whatever, and I would think, well, I can't say that, so I must not be there yet. And I kept, looking for this final breakthrough. And people would describe these, Kundalini experiences, and I never had them. And I was sort of like, well, I'm just not quite there yet. And sometimes I felt like, oh, I'm getting really close. I'm right on the edge. I can feel it. And but I just kind of, oh, I'm still not there. And um, and then finally, it just really hit me. I really began to see, like we were talking about habitual thought patterns. I just really noticed that, wait a minute, this is all about me, the little me, and me getting somewhere in the future. Ding! And, and it was like that, just kind of fell away. So I don't find myself searching for that anymore, but I can still find myself feeling like I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing? Or something. And
You've wasted your life.
I don't quite go that far anymore. It's more like, you know, I listen to other people sometimes. They seem so convinced. They seem so totally sure of what they're saying. You know, like Rupert Spira. He talks about consciousness, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, experientially, it's all consciousness, but can I really be sure I just feel like I don't have that kind of certainty that some people seem to have, which I'm not sure that kind of certainty is even a good thing. I think that what my friend Robert Salzman calls epistemological humility is perhaps a good thing.
I agree.
Because I don't think, we don't know what this is really. I mean, we can't deny that something is here or something's happening. But what it is or how it all works or why it's here or any of that, we don't have a clue really. I mean, there have been all sorts of answers from time immemorial that people have offered and that people believe. But really, we don't know. And we don't actually need to know. There's something incredibly, every time I sort of wake up from one of those, I don't know what I'm doing sort of things, it's kind of like, it's so relieving just to not know and not need to know and just, not that there's nothing to grasp, as I titled that book.
Like you, I think, Joan, I am very suspicious of people who know, who are certain, who 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 are absolutely convinced that they're barking up the right tree, not the wrong tree.
Yeah.
I am more content to live the question than sort of state I've got the answers. I don't think I know the answers to anything. The deeper I sink into what do you call it? The bottomless.
Yeah. One bottomless moment. Yeah.
One bottomless.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah, I don't think we and it feels like the older I get too, the less I feel certain of in terms of just about everything. You know, when I was young, I was so sure I knew how the world should be and I knew everything. And now I'm like, I don't think I really, I don't know.
I don't know about you, Joan. I don't need to be sure anymore.
Yeah.
It's okay not to be sure, to let the line out, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't know that I can make that claim because because you know, in those moments of feeling like I don't know what I'm doing, there's definitely some sort of wanting, some sort of certainty about what I'm doing or what I think or what I'm, you know, that I feel like is missing or something. And so that can still come up. I want to be sure of what I'm doing or something. There's just a I think it might have to do with being a writer who writes books about this stuff and you know holds Zoom meetings with people about this stuff. You know, there's kind of a feeling there that well, I should know what I'm talking about. You know,
Sure.
nobody wants to read a book or go to a meeting with somebody who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. You know, um, so that might be part of it.
Blow your credentials.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, do you know I've come to this? I might be on very thin ice here, Joan.
Oh, that's good. I love thin ice.
Especially well, from with my self-chosen evangelical background, so I might be disqualifying myself from the afterlife. But when I get sort of to the end of my thinking, I honestly don't know if I'm right or wrong. But I blame God. I do. I said, "You've got me into this mess." Whatever it is I am exploring along this path, I rest in the assurance that God's got me into this. So it's His fault. I blame God. I might regret saying that.
I'm curious, like what is God for you? What would you say God is for you?
You know, Do you know, Joan, that's a great question, which I would love to talk about in our next session.
Oh.
And I have got an answer for you. So can you wait for the next session?
Well, that will be a what do they call it? A cliffhanger, a whatever, you know.
Until next time, Joan.
Until next time. Well, this has been wonderful, and I've really enjoyed talking with you, Phil.